Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. In this video today I'm going to be going through all the Necron units within our codex and we're going to be doing a big tier list. I do this every year and I was sort of waiting for the new mission deck to come out before doing it on this one because it would have been slightly out of date with the Prior Nexus deck. So we've got the new deck, Mission Pack, what is it called? Mission Pack 2025-2026. I've had a chance to digest it, had some games, and I can now give you my opinion, of course, just my personal opinion. We're going to put these into tier groups. Now, just before we start this, let's sort of work out what these tier groups actually mean in my tier list. If it is D tier, which is the worst tier, I'm just classing it as garbage, unusable. C, I've got it as niche use, usable, but not fantastic. B, I've got it good in one detachment or fine in many detachments, multiple detachments. A, I've gone extremely good in more than one detachment, and S tier almost in every list. So that's how I'm doing this tier list today. Again, just my opinion. If you've got your own opinions, put them down in the comments down below. Also, make sure you are subscribing and make sure you are liking the video before we proceed. Let's get into it. Okay, we're going to start off with the garbage tier, D tier. We're going to start right at the bottom. At the very bottom, unfortunately, it's going to be the Necrons Obelisk. Defo not a standout in any detachment. You can't even gain Assault in the Star Shatter Arsenal because it's Titanic. It's not even got niche use, really. There's nothing you can really do with it. There's very certain stratagems that you can potentially use it with, but it's not that great, and it's quite expensive at, what, 300 points? It's just a little bit too much. I get why it's that much because it's got a lot of toughness, it's got a lot of wounds, but realistically, you're not going to be using it unless you're playing some fun themed kind of game. You're not really going to take it otherwise. In terms of the weaponry, it's not great either. It's got no AP. I mean, there's a lot of shots, but no AP, just 1 damage. So yeah, that's going to be the bottom of the entire thing for me. Next, I'm going to go with, I don't really want to put this here, but I feel like I have to. It's Trazyn the Infinite. Firstly, it's an epic hero, so you're not going to take any enhancements, so instantly unrelatable to the majority of the detachments. He's got no resurrection orb, no mine will be done like the Necron overlords have. Sticky objectives, which is his ability, ancient collector ability. It kind of sounds good on paper, and in other factions it's a really good ability to have, but it's just in the wrong phase for me. You need it in the movement phase rather than the command phase, like especially if you're playing the Hypercrypt Legion, and if you're off the board because you're hyper phased off, then you've missed the command phase, and that's when it actually happens, so it's a little bit sucky on that front. It would be better in the movement phase, and the surrogate host ability is also pretty awful. I mean, I'd rather keep virtually every single character that we've got that we're going to field. You can potentially use him, with Lichguard with the Noble keyword, or maybe a leader in the Awakened Dynasty, but there's just better options, isn't there? Just standard overlords do better. Not worth it for me. Next in the D tier, we've got this Psychomancer. Odd weapons. I mean, it looks great until you see that it's only 1 attack. It's damage 3, this stuff. -3 AP, damage 3, but it's 1 attack at melee, or 1 attack at range, 1 attack in melee. It's not fantastic. The 2 abilities are pretty situational as well. One of them is only 6 inches. Yeah, it's not ideal. And you've got to think, who's the Psychomancer going to actually be leading? You're going to be sticking them with Immortals or Warriors. I mean, you're probably not realistically, but if you did, there's quite a lot of OC there anyway, so you're likely going to out OC your opponent within 6 inches. The Despair ability is slightly better because it's got 18-inch range and happens in any of your phases. The issue is you'd rather use it on your opponent's turn, but the ability is the start of either of your phases. Getting a unit to take a battle shock test in your turn is mostly pointless, especially if they're not even under half strength, and that's because as soon as their command phase comes around, then they're not battle shocked anymore because they're not below half strength, so it's kind of pointless. Obviously for stratagems it might be handy, but that's quite a little bit of a premium to pay just to avoid your opponent having stratagems on one particular unit within 18 inches. Next one is, it's one of my favourites to be honest with you, it's the Necrons Ghost Arc. I love a Ghost Arc, as long-term viewers of this channel will know, but at the moment it's pretty crap. It's awful, in fact. Every edition I try to find a way to give these things a bit of life, but I do tend to fail. Warriors are not that great right now, especially in 10s. You want them in 20s, you want the resiliency, the durability, and just the fact that you're able to reanimate. You need that part of the unit back and running, because if you lose a unit of 10, well then you've just lost everything. I don't feel we need transports as well, because we've got a lot of other ways to move around the board. We've got the Hypercrypt Legion being one of them, maybe a monolith in that same detachment, or other detachments there. You've got deep striking units from other units such as your Ophidian Destroyers, Death Marks, Hexmark Destroyers and so on. Locked into having just warriors with the Ghost Arc alone, it really hinders their playability in fact. In 9th edition, you could actually do actions with Ghost Arcs whilst within engagement range, which was a pretty big deal because they're quite durable for what they are. They're toughness 9 with 14 wounds and a 4+ invulnerable save. So what I used to do is throw them in the no man's land, lock them in combat. Hopefully you've got hold of the objective as well, and then you can do like an action or cleanse or something, especially if you were playing fixed back then. But now you can't be doing it within engagement range, you can't be doing those actions anymore. That took that one little thing that they could do well out of the game. Nice stats, okay weapons, but really it's a poor return for 115 points. One other thing, because it's a dedicated transport, you've got to have something inside the transport in deployment, which means even more points. So it isn't just 115, it could be another 10 Necron warriors or a character or both, whatever. It doesn't do the job for me at this moment, unfortunately, but hopefully one day it will return. So that is the D tier all done. I've got just 4 units in the D tier. At the bottom there is the obelisk and at the top is the Ghost Arc. Before moving into C tier, a little quick word about our sponsors. CARHOLEMAKERS have a whole host of printed terrain, and I wanted to turn your attention to this competitive 40k terrain set. Just one set is enough terrain to fill a competitive 2000 point game for when you use your 40k chapter approved tournament companion. So it all slots together, unslots, so you can adapt it to any of the 8 layouts that come within the chapter approved tournament companion. We've also got a discount code which is Planet40k20. That will get you a 20% discount. So what are you waiting for? Get your set now. Link will be down in the description down below. Okay, we're on to C tier now. This is niche use. There is a use, but it's very situational, or it's themed, or you know, there is something you can do with it, but it's not massively competitive. We're going to start this thing off with the fortification, the Convergence of Dominion. 60 points for an anti-deep strike stone, effectively. They're pretty large. That's their sort of niche, really. They're just an anti-deep strike, 9 inches away. You stick 1 or 2 in your deployment zone in the sides. It just stops your opponent from deep striking in. Now, they've got a feel no pain rule, which I don't really care so much about, to be honest with you, because if there's a unit nearby getting the feel no pain, then that unit is effectively the anti-deep strike unit, so therefore you wouldn't need the stones in the first place. It kind of makes that the whole point of them redundant if you're going to use the feel no pain ability in that manner anyway. The weapon is okay for what it is, to be honest with you, with the translocation abductors. 3 shots, strength 6, -2, 3 damage. That, to be honest, it's not bad, and 60 points isn't a lot for toughness 7 with 9 wounds, but I think you're better off with, spending 40 points for some Canoptic Scarab Swarms. You can spread the bases out slightly bigger than the actual footprint of one of these stones as well. But yeah, for me at the moment, these stones, Convergence of Dominion, are going to be the last part of C tier. Next in the C tier, it's another niche unit. It's the Night Scythe. Slightly similar to the Ghost Arc. It's not a dedicated transport, so you don't have to have anything in it. But I don't feel we need to spend 145 points for a mobility piece. We've got the Hypercrypt Legion, we've got Hyperphase, we've got Veils of Darkness, we've got Monoliths, and we've got fast units, Tomb Blaze. The Ophidian Destroyers are actually good in all detachments because they can pop in and out. So we've got other alternatives to do the mobility side of it, but I know that's not just what they're about. They're nice because you can fly it in, drop a unit of say Immortals with a Plasmancer, take your shots, and then you're jumping back in at the end of the fight phase. Gives them a little bit of protection. Maybe if you're playing the Hypercrypt Legion, you wait till the end of your opponent's turn and then you pull it off the board and bring it back in and basically rinse and repeat. There's a niche use for it there. But why this is a C and not a D is you can put any infantry units in, not just Necron warriors, literally anything. Also, they can enter turn 1, which is kind of useful in a way. I mean, the more I think about it, the more it could be a bit higher in this tier list, but realistically, I just never go to this thing. I never pick it out. It's just gathering dust on my shelves. But yeah, 145 points, and the weapon isn't exactly great either. The Twin Tesla Destructor. It is strength 8, but it's got no AP 2 damage. The AP really does let it down there. Niche, I'd say. On to the next unit within the C tier is another one that I really like, is the Tesseract Bolt. I love the Tesseract Bolt, but realistically, it's just got niche use. 425 points. I love it and I hate it. It's got so much good about it. It's got towering, which is quite fun. You know, you just stick your toe onto a ruin and you can see straight over and go, I see you all, and you know, shoot whatever you've got, all the Catan powers, everything you've got. But it also opens a door to be shot at the same time, which is a little bit of a now all of a sudden all those Astra Militarum tanks can now see my Bolt. The Tesla Spheres are a bit meh. They're okay. You get a lot of shots, but there's not any AP, so they're not doing a lot. The Catan powers are interesting. With the Star Shatter Arsenal, you're only gaining the +1 to hit against enemies on objectives and not the Assault ability due to the Titanic rule. This is skill 3 on the Tesla Spheres goes to 2. That's good. Antimatter meter going down to 2 is good. Cosmic Fire is auto hitting, so it doesn't really affect that. And the Times Arrow is on 2s anyway, so you don't really need it there. So half the weapons, it actually does have some impact. Hypercrypt Legion is also a little bit of a niche play. You can throw it up there into the no man's land, but it's quite a large model and you need to obviously have 9 inches away from enemy models, so you're probably going to have to use a stratagem, Cosmic Precision, so that it's only 6 inches. But with the current rule set with layouts and terrain, it's going to be quite hard to find certain spots for it to fit in, although the base is quite small. It's just the actual hull. Niche and friendly games, yes. 1k games, it's pretty hard to deal with in a 1k game, but in a 2,000 point competitive game, you'd probably put too many eggs in one basket and it's just going to get shot, and then you've literally lost a quarter of your list. So yeah, C tier for me. Next in the C tier, we've got the Annihilation Barge. It's been a poor pick for most of this edition until the Star Shatter Arsenal came about during Christmas, and then it got a little bit of use because it gained assault effectively, and the +1 to hit is quite nice and useful for the weaponry. However, even though it's gained those decent buffs in that particular detachment, the weapons aren't fantastic. The Malevolent Arcing ability is okay, but it's a shame because it happens on a 5+ and not a 4+. If it was on a 4+, this thing will be pretty good. You probably fill 3 of them. I think we've got better options in similar-ish roles like Triax Stalkers or the bigger stuff, Doomsday Ark, Silent King and whatnot. I tend to not go with the Annihilation Barge, but I do see some niche play, especially in that detachment, Star Shatter Arsenal. Next, we've got the Triumph Praetorians. Now, this may be a bit of a misplacement here. I just don't like Triumph Praetorians, and this is just my tier list. I'm not a fan. I think they're too expensive. 100 points for 5. Very expensive Swiss Army knives, effectively. They can do everything. Have they got the mobility? Yes. Have they got the shooting capability? Yes. Can they fight? Yes. They can kind of do everything, but just not that well, in my opinion. I mean, they've got good abilities. Deep Strike is a good ability. Re-rollable charge and fallback and charge is a good ability. It is a good ability. I mean, the fallback and charge means you're not shooting those pistols if you've taken the pistol option. Particle casters. It's only really useful to fallback and charge if you've got the Rod of Covenant. Otherwise, you're missing out on those shots. I mean, I prefer the Rod of Covenant anyway. They've got the better damage. So yeah, I would only take them with the Rod of Covenant. I mean, the synergy that they have is so lacking. Apart from the... Well, I take that back. There's a bit of synergy. There's a bit of niche use. Hypercrypt Legion, you can deep strike, re-deep strike, pick them up, put them down, and so on. You've got better options though. You've got death marks, hex marks, and so on. With the Obeisance Phalanx, they are Triarch units, so therefore they do get the +1 to wound. I just don't think it's good enough for 100 points. I'd rather take something else. That one's just my opinion. A lot of you guys probably really like Praetorians. Next in C tier, it's the Doom Scythe. One of our big heavy pieces, but it's an aircraft. Aircrafts for a long time, this edition, last edition, they've just been kind of crap, and they don't really have a solid place in the 40k game. They lack OC, they've got weird janky movement rules, they lack detachment synergy and unit synergy in general. I mean, there are some auras that can help the Doom Scythe, but because of their movement that they have to do, you kind of end up outside of those auras a lot of the time. I mean, at least you get to shoot stuff that, it's almost like having towering. If you've got true line of sight with an aircraft, you can shoot. So that is something that, bypasses the restrictions of the normal shooting phase. The death ray is pretty solid, which is strength 16, d6 +1 damage, and sustain hits d3 is kind of cool. And the ability is also a bit odd. So you're either going to get 5+ critical hit rolls, or your opponent's unit that you're targeting will have a -1 to hit until your next shooting phase. The problem is though, this is 230 points. It's a lot of points. I mean, the Doomsday Arcs are cheaper and in my opinion do more. One other thing it's got going for it though is the fact that it is an aircraft. It can only be charged by units that have got fly. So it has a little bit of defense in a way, but as soon as you come across a faction that's got a lot of fly, easy work for them. But there are other factions that may not have a lot of fly, so then in that case, these may be pretty good. Next, this one's another tricky one. I've gone with the Necrons monolith. 400 points. We deserve more from the unit for 400 points. That's quite hefty. It's got the funky Eternity Gate, which is cool for, you know, moving things about. It's got decent stats, it's got decent weapons, especially with the Death Rays, 4 of them. In the Hypercrypt Legion, it's probably where the niche use comes from. You've got a lot of stratagems that relate to the monolith, one of them giving it an invulnerable save, which it doesn't have naturally. So there's a lot of things you can do in that one particular detachment, but the tactics involved with the monolith, I believe, are too niche. You've got to find space, and then you're bringing out units from the Eternity Gate and then Cosmic Precision and maybe some other things nearby. It's kind of a one-trick pony. Once you've done it once or twice, your opponent knows what it is, and in competitive play, your opponent is going to know better. You're not going to find that space that easily, in my opinion. In your themed fun games, yeah, it's cool to do. I mean, the monolith itself is a bit of a lump. It's, you know, with 10th edition terrain layouts, it's not that easy just to go bang, stick the monolith wherever you want. But you will find places to put it, don't get me wrong, but will it go exactly where you want it to go? Towering, of course, does help, but you can be shot at the same time. I just want more from 400 points. I know I get the stats, I know I get a bit of weapons, the Eternity Gate, but for me, this monolith is like the cornerstone of Necrons. It's one of the main iconic units, and I want to be playing this thing every game. I want to be using it, but I'm just not, because it just absolutely rinses your points. 1/5 of your points is just gone instantly, and as soon as you lose this thing, it's just a feel bad moment. Even when I play the Hypercrypt Legion, it just doesn't come out. I never really used it in the Hypercrypt Legion that often. You know, the movement shenanigans you can do without the monolith. You literally got the hyperphase rule army-wide as a detachment rule. Why do you need the monolith Eternity Gate? Yes, there's a stratagem where you can pull things off in your opponent's turn, a few little shenanigans in the movement phase so you're not missing the command phase and scoring. I get that, but 400 points? No, it's too much. So that is C tier, all done and dusted. Okay, B tier. These units are good in one detachment or fine, you know, just okay in multiple. This very first one, you could argue it goes down a tier. You really could. I've had a few debates in our Discord about this one, but I've left it in B tier for now. I think it is solid in multiple detachments. I'm not saying it's fantastic in one, but it's solid in multiple. So that's why I've left it in B tier. So this is the Sereptic Heavy Construct. 540 points. It's a huge investment, not just from your wallet, but in terms of points. But when you field it, whatever detachment you're fielding it in, it's pretty good. I mean, negative marks for being the Forge World stuff and very expensive. And as a standalone unit though, it is insane. It's got immense firepower. It's pretty good in melee. There's a lot of damage coming from this thing. Synergy does lack. I mean, the Star Shatter Arsenal, you're not getting Assault. Again, it's Titanic, but you do get the +1 against enemy units on objectives. Hyperphase Legion, Hypercrypt Legion even, you can hyperphase it, so it makes it decent in that detachment too. So you can launch it up the battlefield, and yeah, your opponent just has to deal with this thing. It's got 24 wounds, it's got 5+ invulnerable save, toughness 12. Yeah, it's an animal. It's an absolute animal. I mean, it could be quite fun alongside like the Silent King, for example, where you're re-rolling ones to hit and to wound. That could be very good, especially when you're in the Star Shatter Arsenal, firing at enemy units on objectives, so you've got the +1 to hit. So you'll be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, then wounded on whatever, re-rolling 1s. So next in B tier, I'm going to go with the Royal Warden. Now it takes the spot of a potential Overlord or Noble within the unit of Immortals or Warriors. Effectively, you're swapping the My Will Be Done ability and the Resolve as well, and you're basically swapping that out for Fallback and Shoot, Fallback and Charge. You've of course got the Anti-Battle Shock ability as well, which is it's okay. It's a nice little bonus to have. The weapon is reasonable, it will chip away at weaker units and probably nearly get your points back, if not get your points back just with the weapon alone. If you wanted a leader for one of those battle line units, you're probably going to go with a Cryptek. If you're going with Warriors, a 20-man block of Warriors is going to get tagged quite easily because of the large footprint, and once they're tagged, they're not going to be shooting. When you've got the Royal Warden, you've got the ability to fall back, move your OC around a little bit, survive a fight phase because you're now not in a fight phase, and also give some offense off at the same time for just 50 points. So he does have a bit of value. It's just that Warriors are not fantastic at the moment, and they're not as selectable as Immortals. So you could argue, well, why not put them with Immortals? I think it's harder to put them with Immortals because you go in 5s or 10s. I tend to just try and go either cheap for scoring, or if I go big, I'm going with a Plasmancer and that's it. A 10-man unit isn't actually that much. It's not worth spending a third of that unit on another leader just to be able to fall back. Next, this one's another debatable one. I think these are coming back. They're making a slight comeback. It's the Cryptothralls. A pair of these is 60 points, and they go with a Cryptek. And the main use for me, sticking in with the Canoptic Wraiths, a Technomancer, and then grabbing 60 points for the Cryptothralls, because what I find is a super durable unit. That's what gives them that durability. They're so hard to shift, and then Reanimation and the Technomancer healing ability, bringing them back, they're so hard to shift. 4+ as well, which is, you know, half a chance of ignoring damage. Now, of course, if a Bloodthirster shows up and goes, I'm going to epic challenge, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's going to die, and the Cryptothralls are going to die as well. Everything's going to die. The Bloodthirster is just going to annihilate everything. But if it's a bog standard captain and he goes, I'm going to epic challenge, and you bring out this 4+ feel no pain save, there's quite a high chance that he actually does survive. Another B tier unit, I've gone with Orokin the Diviner. He's useful, but in my opinion, only useful for 20 warriors. Immortals, a lot of comments actually say sticking with Immortals. I don't agree, because Immortals have got a 3+ armor save anyway. It's only going to be minus 2 AP weapons or better that will go beyond the equivalent. If it's a minus 1 AP weapon, it puts it on a 4+ save. Same thing without Orokin. So it's only minus 2 AP that puts it to a 5+ save. Also, we're not taking into account cover saves as well. So in some situations, it's minus 3 AP range weapon, if that makes sense. That's where you would need Orokin. Orokin is only useful if it's minus 2 AP without cover or minus 3 AP with cover. Situational times, really. I think it's just better with warriors. 4+ armor save as a regular save is pretty bad, whereas Orokin's there, 4+ guaranteed. And you're using it on 20 warriors as well, rather than 5 or 10 Immortals. Detachment wise, Canoptic Court, that's got the right keyword because it's got the Canoptic keyword, so that will apply to Orokin, which will then apply to his unit that he's leading. The Awakened Dynasty for the +1 to hit roll for units that are being led. Nice. I would put him higher, but again, warriors are just a little bit lackluster. Oh, in fact, I nearly forgot, he's got the Stars Are Right. The Stars Are Right is a pretty cool ability where he hulks up, he triples his attacks, he triples his strength, and every successful wound roll scores a critical wound. So if you need 3s to wound, it all of a sudden becomes a critical wound if you roll a 3. And of course he's got devastating wounds, so even that 3 would now become a devastating wound. So very useful to hulk up once per battle, and I think that sort of separates him slightly, and the fact that he can go with Immortals if you wanted to. We're going to move into those warriors, in fact. Not my cup of tea at all at this moment. Index first came out, when the edition first came, I loved warriors. The synergy was fantastic, and then they nerfed them. The D3 + 3 reanimation thing got thrown out, and it instantly became a D3 rerollable reanimation, which absolutely sucks. I mean, 1/3 of the time you're going to use it and you might not even roll better. So I don't like the ability, but they do work well in multiple detachments, and they work well with a whole host of different leaders. You can become a Cryptek unit by adding a Cryptek, then all of a sudden they're going to be useful in the Canoptic Court. You can add a Noble to the unit, so they're all of a sudden useful in the Obeisance Phalanx. It's our only unit that can stack into 20 models, in fact. I mean, that's unique value in itself. There's no other unit in our codex that can get to 20. That's a lot of models to chew through in the No Man's Land objectives, potentially. But to be honest, you're literally paying 9 points just for a body, just for a wound, because the weapons are a bit crap. There are ways of synergizing them to make them better, with Illumina Zares, for example. Maybe use of some stratagems, but they are just a bit meh. Next in the B tier, I've gone with the Canoptic Doom Stalker, but I'm going to go with B tier for now, because the Canoptic Court is kind of coming back, because the points got decreased for a lot of units that are Canoptic, so they are making a comeback. But this tier group here, this B tier, is for units that work well in either one detachment or okay in multiple. I think this one works well in a single detachment, which is the Canoptic Court. Stick it on your home objective, full rerolls because you're within your power matrix, get 3 of them, max it out. Toughness 8, 3 plus save, 4 plus invulnerable save, 12 wounds, and a Doomsday Blaster per Doomstalker, which is strength 14 with -3 AP, 3 damage with blast, with heavy. So you hit on 3s when you're heavy, you'll be re-rolling either 1s or everything. And you also get to fire Overwatch on a 5+, which is not too bad, especially if you roll well with the D6 +1 Doomsday Blaster. I don't recommend using it in other detachments. If you want like a light vehicle, you probably go like Triarch Stalker, something along those lines, or just throw in some more scoring units. I think you can just live without taking a Doomstalker because you just take, again, Doomsday Arcs or maybe even Locust Heavies. Next in the B tier, it's another Canoptic unit. I've gone with the Reanimator. I had a love-hate relationship with the Reanimator in 9th. This edition, I don't hate it anymore, but it's just, we kind of know where we stand with it. 75 points for 2 rolls of the reanimation roll in your command phase, or whenever you reanimate in fact. So it could be a stratagem that allows you to reanimate in the fight phase, for example. It works every single time you reanimate. These things work well in many detachments. I'm not going to just pinpoint the Canoptic Court because offensively, it doesn't do a lot. And the stratagems aren't going to be that useful for a reanimator, but in many detachments I think it's quite good. I mean, this thing could be brushing alongside the Silent King in the Obeisance Phalanx or the Star Shatter Arsenal potentially. It could be going alongside a group of Canoptic Wraiths in the Canoptic Court, helping the reanimation that way, make them even more durable. It could be following up a Catan in any detachment really. Not so much the Transcendent because they're a bit too quick for the reanimator, but maybe it's a Nightbringer or something. Now, I love the fact that it's got a 4+ Feel No Pain save. I think it's so rare, really, to have a 4+ Feel No Pain save rather than a 5+. It's got no invuln though, unfortunately, but because it's going to be within its own aura of a lackluster 3 inches, it probably should be 6 really, shouldn't it? But that's an old argument. But it's got a 3-inch aura which it will always be within itself of, so it's always going to have double reanimation, always going to have 2d3 to reanimate. If your opponent is targeting it, and they've got to get through that Feel No Pain save. It's got toughness 6 with 6 wounds as well, but then you get to the Feel No Pain save. If you don't finish it off by the time our turn comes around, or by the time we've used a stratagem to reanimate potentially, we're potentially going to get quite a lot of wounds back. If you roll well with your reanimation rolls, maybe you roll a 2 and a 3 and you just get 5 wounds back, just like that. You're very likely to come back to full wounds. Next in B tier is the Command Barge, the Catacomb Command Barge. This was getting absolutely no play until the Star Shatter Arsenal came about during the Grotmus detachment releases during Christmas 2024. Now all of a sudden it's a solid option because the Star Shatter Arsenal is a preferred detachment amongst Necron players. I'm not actually that keen on it, but a lot of Necron players go for that detachment, and this is one of those solid options because of the new enhancement within that detachment, which is the Dread Majesty, which is an aura to reroll hit rolls on 1s and rerolls on 1s for anything within 6 inches, which is like a mini Silent King in a way, a cheaper Silent King. Rather than paying 400+ points for a Silent King, you get this thing for 120, add the enhancement for 30 points. A lot of people at the moment are going with a Command Barge and 3 Doomsday Arcs in the Star Shatter Arsenal because of the Assault and the +1 to hit potential, rerolling 1s to hit, rerolling 1s to wound. It gets quite nasty. It's a solid option. Weapon-wise, it's not that great. It's got a low number of attacks. You've got some options though with the Tesla and the Gorse and the Staff of Light, or the Overlord's Blade, which I think I prefer to go with. I tend to go with the damage 2 stuff with this. Outside of this detachment, you're not going to see much play. Maybe the Awakened Dynasty, you can add the 4+ Feel No Pain save enhancement on him, but that has gone up in price. I think that's gone up to like 30 points now, so it's again quite pricey and offensively not doing much. Does add some OC to units within 6, that will help Canoptic Scarab Swarms that don't have any OC, and there's also a -1 to wound it if your opponent's strength is more than the toughness of toughness 8. But yeah, solid in at least one detachment, I'd probably argue 2. Next in B tier, I've gone with the Lich Guard. Reasonable points price, 85 points. Good in many detachments. I mean, the Obeisance Phalanx, because of course it's got the Lich Guard keyword. So worthy foes can be put on, +1 to wound against a selected target. There's also stratagems that you could do in that detachment that purely apply to Lich Guard only. The Awakened Dynasty is helpful. They're going to be led by a Noble because of their ability. We'll come on to that in a moment. But you're going to get a +1 to hit in the Awakened Dynasty. You can also use the Protocol of Hungry Boy to get an extra bit of strength in there. But yeah, their ability, Guardian Protocols, when you've got a Noble in the unit, you're going to have the -1 to wound the unit if the strength is more than their toughness, which is toughness 5. But you do need the Noble in the unit. I mean, I tend to, whenever I take Imhotep the Stormlord, I tend to throw him in this unit just for somewhere to go for a bit more wounds and bodyguard and stuff. And then of course he's a noble, so he applies to their ability. I do like the fact that you can select their weapons. You can either go with the hyperphase swords, which come with the dispersion shields, so they've got the 4+ invulnerable save, which is very handy for bunkering down onto objectives. That's the way I would only really take them. The war sign option, strength 8 -3, 2 damage with 2 attacks per model, devastating wounds, is great, but you've got no invuln. You've literally removed your invuln, and that's, to me, with their lack of speed, 5 inches, it's not good enough. I've kind of clumped 2 units together here slightly because of laziness, but just saves time here. They're both the overlords. One's got the translocation shroud and one's the standard overlord. But like with the Lich Guard, they work well in the Obeisance Phalanx, they work well in the Awakened Dynasty. The Shrouded Overlord works particularly good with Immortals that are carrying Tesla, because they have the assault ability with their weapon, and that makes them able to advance and still fire. And if you've got the Translocation Shroud, you're auto advancing 6 inches and you can do it through enemy models and so on. If you add a Chronomancer to that same unit, you can then shoot your Tesla weapons and then move again, which is kind of cool. It's a nice little bit of synergy there. They battle well in melee because they've got the Overlord's Blade if you selected the Overlord's Blade. The standard Overlord has a few different options that you can select from, others being the Staff of Light. The Void Scythe is interesting, but only really useful if you're going with Lich Guard, because you don't really want to go with Immortals and then get into the fight, because that's not what Immortals do. But if you're sticking with Lich Guard, yeah, that's nice. Strength 12 -3, 3 damage with dead wounds is nice. Both of them have got the Mine Will Be Done ability, of course, which is good for stratagems, and they've got Resurrection Orbs as well, also handy. The standard Overlord has the Teching Arrow, 1 shot, 72-inch range, strength 16, -5 AP, d6 +2 damage. In the Obeisance Phalanx, that is very useful because you've got the +1 to wound, so you're pretty much guaranteed 2s and 2s no matter what the target. The problem is it's not devastating wounds. I think it should have just been dev wounds, and it should have been no matter what the wound is. Even if you roll like a 3, it should just be a dev wound. But it's not. Any invuln, a 4+5 plus invuln can simply block that 1 shot and it's done, which is a little bit annoying, and that's why we don't take Tacking Arrows. So yeah, ideally I want them with the Lich Guard. They've got the noble keyword, so -1 to wound the unit. I'd kit them out full melee if you're going to do that, or alternatively you're going to use them as an orb carrier with warriors, but I think I'd rather the Royal Warden in that position than the Resurrection Orb. I think that has more value. Carrying on with the B tier, we've got the Triarch Stalker. I quite like a Triarch Stalker. In the Obeisance Phalanx, it is useful because it's got the Triarch keyword. You can gain a bit of OC with one of the stratagems in there because of the Triarch keyword, in fact. Star Shatter Arsenal, it's a vehicle, so you've all of a sudden got Assault. I mean, it's already moving 8 inches and it's got Scout 8 inches as well, so having Assault means it's very quick, in fact, really fast. The +1 to hit is useless if you've taken the Heat Ray using it on the Dispersed option, which is automatically hitting, so hitting on objectives, well, you're not going to get the +1 to hit because you auto hit anyway. But this thing is 110 points. It's pretty good value for what it can do. Early Scout, get onto early primaries, potentially even do secondaries or actions like Cleanse, potentially. Area Denial and so on. It's got an invuln save and it's toughness 8 with 12 wounds, which I think is quite fair for 110 points. It's also helping to remove cover, so that can help other units that you've got. If you've got -1 AP and your opponent claims cover, then it's basically no AP, but if you've got the Triarch Stalker in your list shooting at that same unit, your opponent isn't claiming cover. I still hate the fact that it's only got 4 attacks in melee, but you get what you pay for, so solid B for me. Next in B, we've got the Skorpek Lord. It used to be 80 points, so it went up 10 points. They're still solid though, they're still solid. They're leading your Skorpek Destroyers, so in the Awakened Dynasty, fantastic. Hitting on 2s all round all of a sudden. That's sort of their prime detachment in my opinion. The Annihilation Legion is another option, and there's a lot of detachments, and of course the enhancements are there as well, but I think it's all about the Awakened Dynasty for Skorpek Destroyers and Skorpek Lords. You can revive him, in fact. In the Awakened Dynasty, you've got the Eternal Revenant stratagem to bring him back. You've got the Hungry Void stratagem for a +1 strength and AP. You could also run him solo, because in that detachment there is the Feel No Pain save, the 4+ Feel No Pain save enhancement, so you could just run him solo and cause mayhem doing it that way. He does mortal wounds on the charge, he adds lethal hits to his unit if he's leading a unit. All round I think he's pretty decent. Toughness 7 as well with 7 wounds and the invuln save for just 90 points. I think he is decent. I'm not going to say A tier because he went up in points. First of the Catans has showed up in my tier list. It's the Deceiver. I never know where to put the Deceiver in these tier lists because they're good but they're bad.
but I've landed at the mid of B to the top of B, sort of near the top end of B. Do we select it? We don't. We don't select it. Honestly, we don't. If we do, does it perform well? Absolutely, it does. It really does. It's got the nice precision ranged attack against, and it's anti-character as well, so you can snipe out characters with the Cosmic Insanity. I like that. It's tough like all the Catans are. Toughness 11, 4 plus invuln, 12 wounds. It's got the 5 plus footnote pain save. It's halving damage. It's got stealth, which is actually unique to this Catan as well. The other Catans do not have stealth, so -1 to hit it. The Grand Illusion ability, of course, is the everything of this Catan, and you can really bust your opponent's deployment because you can literally you can deploy whatever you want to do and then move 3 units, and you can even put them into strategic reserves if you want. So your opponent just doesn't know what you're going to do in deployment, whereas a lot of good players will look at your deployment. But if you're able to change your deployment after your opponent has dropped their models, that's a big advantage. Now, does it work well with a particular detachment? No, there's not one standout detachment that any Catan really works fantastically well in, but you can run this thing solo in any detachment. It doesn't need to synergize with the detachment itself. It might not be as glamorous as taking a Nightbringer, who's an absolute animal, but for 265 points, this Catan is sort of low-key value. So it's going in B. Speaking of Catans, we've got another one. We've got the Void Dragon. Similar to the Deceiver, but I think it is a few more benefits, hence why it's got a higher price tag of 300 points. First of all, it's got those solid ranged attacks. It's also very versatile in melee, because it can hurt things big, it can hurt things small. It's got extra attacks as well with the tail. Also, this is a large model, because it's one of the newer Catans. It's got mobility. I know that doesn't make sense because all of the Catans only move 6 or whatever. Because of the model and the size of the base, if you wanted to U-turn and go 180 the other way, you don't have as much ground to go. Whereas with the Nightbringer, if you've gone a certain distance, that base is only that small. There's a few inches more that you've got to go if you want to go back. It's hard to judge any of the Catan really, but they are all solid, and this one's particularly solid against vehicles. I think this is more of a bonus though. Being good against vehicles isn't the one reason you take this thing. You take it for all the stats and the weaponry, but the fact that it can do stuff against vehicles is a bonus. Tomb Blades are next. A lot of people like Tomb Blades. I'm not a big fan, but I'm going to put them in B. They've got they've probably got the best mobility in the codex because they move 12 inches. They've got Scout. I believe the Scout is 9 inches. You can take the Tesla option, which gives them assault, so they can advance. They're going to be firing still, and then they get to move after firing with their Invasion Ingram's ability. So there's so much movement that these things can do without having to teleport and deep strike and so on. Now they are mounted, so in the Star Shatter arsenal they get to gain assault from any of the weapons. You don't just have to stick to the Tesla option to gain assault anymore. You could go with the particle beamers and still have assault, and you're getting the +1 to hit on objectives, although I think that is probably the best weapon in the Star Shatter arsenal because it's got devastating wounds and it's D6 attacks per Tomb Blade and Blast on top of that, whereas the other weapons only have 2 attacks each. I like the D6. I know the D6 is random, but if you had a D6 roll and you rolled a 2, you'd be disappointed, and that's what the other 2 weapons have, although they are twin linked. I don't know, I think I prefer the particle beamer there with assault in the Star Shatter arsenal. If you're not in the Star Shatter arsenal, then I'd probably go Tesla, and they're more of a scoring unit anyway. You can add their war gear abilities, ignores cover, stealth, or you can reduce their movement to 8 but have a 3+ armor save. I tend to go with the Shadow Loom, which is the stealth ability. These guys are scoring units for me. I don't want to be ignoring cover. I don't care too much about the offense. Gaining a bit of armor save is handy, but then you're losing movement, which I think is what that's everything about these guys. Tomb Blades are all about the movement. You might have the card behind enemy lines and you've got nothing left to do it. You've deep struck all your stuff in, and you're not playing the Hypercrypt Legion, and then you remember, I've got Tomb Blades. They can just zip off to the other side of the battlefield, be behind enemy lines. Potentially you can even do things like establish Locust if you've not advanced, and just using your regular 12-inch movement there. And cheap. They're 75 points. You could take them in 6s for 150, but I tend to not. They're not an offensive unit for me. I'd rather go with Immortals because you can at least add a leader, which then gives you the buffs like a Plasmancer, 5+ criticals and so on. Okay, on to the Canoptic Spider. For me, we could potentially argue that these things are A tier. Excellent again in the Star Shatter Arsenal because they are vehicles, so they're gaining Assault again, +1 to hit on objectives again. They're fantastic in the Canoptic Court because they've got the Canoptic keyword, so they could be re-rolling all their stuff in the Power Matrix. They're helpful in the Obeisance Phalanx if you've got the Silent King potentially, because you're going to be giving them, all vehicles, a Feel No Pain save, including the Spider, because it's a vehicle. Likewise, if you're playing the Hypercrypt Legion, maybe you've got a Monolith. I wouldn't, but you could play a Monolith. A Feel No Pain save on 20+ wounds is going to be very useful. You're going to get your points back very easily that way. They are also helpful for spawning Canoptic Scarabs, which is good. You can shoot with them, you can fight with them. They're great action monkeys because they're only 75 points each, so they could be doing your cleanse or they could be doing your recover assets or something. They're just good for like literally everything and in multiple detachments. So for me, very top of B. They could potentially go into A. Right, that's B all dealt with. We're now going to be moving into A, which I've classed as extremely good in more than one detachment. So the first unit in the A tier, I've gone with the Transcendent Catan. Now I put this in A and not B because I find there's a lot more uses with this Catan. The Deep Strike ability for one is fantastic, and the Teleport ability is also fantastic. You really get past the lack of mobility that other Catans have, like the Nightbringer only moving so far, so slow. Same with the Void Dragon, the Deceiver and so on. This thing doesn't have that problem. I also like that it has Assault with its weaponry, with the Seismic Assault, so even if you do teleport, you get to still shoot. That teleport move counts as advancing. Of course, you're not going to be able to charge because you've then teleported and advanced, so you can't charge. But sometimes you don't need to charge, you just want to shoot or just move into a certain location. Maybe you've got engage on all fronts and you need something in a certain quarter, bang, Transcendent Catan can just pop into there and still take some shots. Ideally though, you can just deep strike with it. I mean, especially in the Hypercrypt Legion, in fact. You can deep strike in, it's a 9-inch thing, you can shoot, and then you can still potentially charge. Well, you can charge, but potentially make it or not, because it's a 9-inch charge. Get in, and if you don't, and if you're still not within engagement range, likely won't be, your opponent probably won't want to get into engagement range with a Catan, you can hyperphase out and rinse and repeat. Or stay there and then you go for a charge in that same spot. Detachment wise, yeah, Hypercrypt Legion, we've just mentioned it with the re-deep strike. But in all the other detachments, it's not going to synergize, but it just works so well. We've already kind of gone through all the stats and buffs of all the Catan. The Feel No Pain save, you've got the Toughness 11, 12 wounds, 4+ invuln, halving damage, all that jazz. And it's only 295 points. Something that is very versatile to what the game is, what the mission is, what your cards are saying, what your opponent is doing, or where the space is. This Catan can kind of do it all. So that's why I go with A tier for this Catan. The Nightbringer, this is partly because I've always had a soft spot for the Nightbringer. It's been one of my favourite Catans just for the look of it. I know it's an old model, but it just looks a beast. The most fierce Catan we've got. One of the most fierce characters in the game, in fact. It can stand toe-to-toe with Titans, with Primarchs. I mean, the range attacks are brutal. The Gaze of Death, D6 plus 3 damage with D3 shots at strength 12. It's not really even about the range. This thing's a melee monster. But even that ranged attack is quite nasty. Once it gets within engagement range, you've got the sweep or strike options, which is always good if you're going against the smaller stuff. You're still strength 8 minus 2 damage, so it's just absolutely eating your standard intercessors. It's 2s and 2s, and you need to make a 5-up save or you're dead. For the strike profile, 6 attacks at strength 14, minus 4, d6 plus 2 damage. I think that's good. I think that's really good. Considering we're not really a melee army, we're not really a melee faction, I think that's pretty decent. Obviously there are other characters within the game that have got better melee stats than that, but have they got the same durability? And after all that's said and done, you've then got the Drain Life ability. Every enemy unit within 6 inches on a 4+ suffers D3 mortal wounds. It does of course lack mobility, moving only 6 inches, but I just think you head to the centre of the battlefield. That's where most of the engagement's going to be happening. That's the key area, isn't it? The centre of the battlefield. You'll spot the key locations during the deployment anyway. Go to there, that's where the majority of the stuff's going to happen. Throw down the gauntlet, and if your opponent doesn't want it, then they're likely going to lose the no man's land, and if they do want it, well, you're likely going to slap them up. So
That's how I play the Nightbringer. There's also a detachment that you wouldn't think that the Nightbringer could do well in, but actually can, which is the Canoptic Court. Because the Canoptic Court requires you to hold objectives in the no man's land for your power matrix, or the enemy deployment zone of course, but mainly it's a no man's land. If you've got a Nightbringer just shifting up to the no man's land, the centre of the board, holding one of those objectives and just standing firm saying, if you want this, you've got to come and fight me, well that's going to help your power matrix. Because you've got one objective done, you send your wraiths to the other one, and away you go. But he works really well as a solo unit in pretty much every detachment. Next I've gone with Imhotep the Stormlord. I'm a big fan of Imhotep, the CP farmer of the codex, which means he's going to be working in any detachment, because every detachment needs CP, so he's going to be working in pretty much any detachment. Of course you're going to boost his utility in the obeisance balance because he's a noble. I like to pair him with Lich Guard, which they do have the Lich Guard keyword anyway, but it's just a bit of extra protection. And of course he's a noble, that goes to the Guardian's protocol ability that their Lich Guard actually have. Works in the Awakened Dynasty as well. Could be Lich Guard, could be Warriors, Immortals, whatever. They're going to get a +1 to their hit roll. So if you've already got him within your list and you didn't want to grab a Plasmancer or an Overlord and you just wanted a cheap 5-man Immortal unit to score some points, you may as well stick him in there because it's 5 extra wounds that can reanimate. You may as well do it. His weapons and the Lord of Storm ability will remove some smaller models from the board to regain some of his 100 points back. You can't add enhancements of course because he is an epic hero, but I think it's worth it over like a standard Overlord or the Overlord with the Translocation Shroud. Of course you get, they get enhancements and resurrection orbs and stuff, but Lord of Storm and CP, that's quite handy. So yeah, he's also going to be an A tier. Another A tier unit, and he's gone cheaper, so my notes are wrong. Illumina Zares, who is now 165 points. So he went down 10 points in the latest update. He's pretty tough to kill. He's almost like a mini Catan in a way. For 165 points, he's got an invuln save alongside his 2+ armor. So 2+ armor, 4+ invuln, toughness 8, 9 wounds, 4+ feel no pain save, which I think is very good. Very irregular. Again, there's not many things have it other than the Canoptic Reanimator and the enhancement. They're the only ones that have a 4+ feel no pain save. But that alongside a 4+ invulnerable save is pretty tidy. And a 2+ armor, so even if there's like low AP weapons, you're going to get an even better save. He's incredible in the Awakened Dynasty because you can bring back a character with the Eternal Revenant, and he's an infantry character, so he can be one of those that use that stratagem to be brought back to life. You can get niche usage out of him in the Hypercrypt Legion, which we mentioned with the Monolith in an earlier entry in this video, where you can Cosmic Precision him in, who's only got a 3-inch aura to start with, but it can increase as he destroys models. And his ability allows your battle line units to have extra AP when they're firing, when they're taking shots at range and in melee. It's a -1 to your opponent's AP, which is good because that isn't actually a cover save, so you still get your cover save as well, if a cover save does apply. So in Silvertide lists, he's also going to be quite handy because of course that's a lot of battle line units, warriors and immortals again. He's pretty much going to work in most detachments. The Canoptic Court he can work in because he is also a cryptech, so he's going to have the rerolls there. Next in A tier, I've gone with the Death Marks. I think they're a super solid scoring unit for only 65 points for 5 models. I don't care about the toughness, I don't care about the wounds because they're there to score. The main thing is their deep strike. Their deep strike is where it's at. 65 points for a deep striking unit is dirt cheap. Their second utility, or the bonus in the data card, is the fact that they've got the Synaptic Disintegrators, the snipers with precision, and they're heavy too, so you can opt to snipe out characters if you wanted to give them a second role within your list. But mainly it's all about deep striking into a certain location, whether it's a primary objective, whether it's one of your secondary cards, something that you can't get to that easily. It could be behind the enemy lines again, or it could be one of those secondaries where you want to spend an action and you don't have an action monkey to do it. Maybe it's just a basic cleanse, or it could be sabotage or something like that. Detachments of note, I mean of course the Hypercrypt Legion, because you can pick them up again, the uppy downy thing. With Deep Strike, very handy. That's probably the main one I'd consider, but they're extremely good for that detachment. That's why I'd put them up in A. And what I love about that detachment in particular, I mean I say this quite a lot, but when you've hyperphased the unit off, they're not re-entering until your movement phase, they're not re-entering. And of course in your command phase is where you collect your cards, if you need any cards. Up to 2 cards, secondary cards. You now know what you need to do, and you've got a unit in Deep Strike that can go and do it. And your opponent
doesn't know what you've got, and because you didn't know what you got until you pulled the cards, but by then it's your turn. So again, if you go pull engage on all fronts and you need a certain quarter, or it's established locust, you've all of a sudden got a unit right there in the bag to do it, and you could even spend a CP on cosmic precision if you've been zoned out slightly with a 6-inch deep strike rather than a 9. You probably will lose the unit afterwards, but sometimes that could give you 5 VP and they've done their job. So I would take these in any detachment though, not just the Hypercrypt. You can run them solo for secondaries, 65 points, and you get guns. Pretty good. Next in A tier, I've gone with the Locust Lord. I don't know how you guys feel about Locust Lord. I love Locust Lords. I think they're so good. Fast becoming one of my favourite units. But in order to work, they of course need to work with either Locust Destroyers or Locust Heavy Destroyers. I mean, you can run them solo in fact, which a lot of people tend to forget about. In their war gear options, you can take them with the Nano Scarab Amulet, which gives them a 5+ feel no pain instead of taking a Resurrection Orb. Similar to like a Scorpet Lord, you can just run him solo, give him the Lord's Blade, he's got an M1, he's got a feel no pain. Let him go at it, why not? But ideally you're going to take the Resurrection Orb, and you're going to be taking them with your Locust Destroyers or Locust Heavies. Now in the Awakened Dynasty, +1 to hit, it means all of a sudden the Locust Heavies can move with their heavy and still hit on 2s, or the standard Destroyers just hitting on 2s anyway is great. In the Star Shatter Arsenal, these guys are mounted, or he's a mounted unit and he's leading a mounted unit. Assault, get an enhancement in there, +1 to hit on objectives in there. You get +1s to wound and -1s to wound on the Star Shatter Arsenal. There's all that jazz. Awakened again, going back to that Awakened one, you got the Veil of Darkness, you've got the Conquering Tyrant, the Vengeful Stars, all good tactics, all good stratagems. But yeah, there's a lot you can do with a Locust Lord, and I really do like it. It's a shame you can't buy an actual Locust Lord without kit bashing something, unless you can get one of the old ones. Next I've got one of the Cryptex. It's a Chronomancer. Not far apart from the Plasmancer, but just slightly behind. I love the -1 to hit ability. I love the move shoot move ability. It's also a Cryptek with an invuln save. In fact, it's the only one of the 4 normal Crypteks, not the epic heroes. Only one of the 4 that has an invuln save, so sometimes helpful with precision shots maybe. Now in the Canoptic Core, of course, he unlocks the Power Matrix for Immortals. Again, we mentioned it earlier, but you can have the Tesla Immortals that are advancing, and then you can do your move shoot move business. You get them going rapid. In the Hypercrypt Legion, Cosmic Precision maybe, move shoot move onto an objective, 6 inches away from enemy models. You then shoot with your Immortals. You then can move, that could get all of that OC onto an objective and completely steal it. Maybe it's like Storm Hostile objective, maybe it's behind enemy lines. Of course in the Awakened Dynasty, the +1 to hit, you know the coup. He works in multiple detachments, and multiple units are going to benefit from what he brings to the table. For just 65 points as well, but I don't think he's as good as a Plasmancer. I've had a lot of success with this Cryptek, not just for his lance. I mean, his lance alone is good. Damage 2, strength 7, damage 2 with a reasonable amount of shots and attacks. But what I really like is the Living Lightning ability. Probably just makes his points back alone. 4 dice at an enemy unit that's visible within 18. Any 4+ rolls are 1 mortal wound. And you're doing that every shooting phase. Every single shooting phase, you're on average doing 2 mortal wounds, killing an intercessor on average. So 55 points. You'll easily make that up with that ability alone. But he also provides 5+ critical hits, whether he's with the warriors or immortals, lethal hits on a 5+, or sustained hits 2 on a 5+. If you've got ways of re-rolling stuff, like the Canoptic Court, even better. The Awakened Dynasty has a +1. I mean, if you think about it, imitate the Stormlord with his Lord of Storm ability. He does it once per game. But this Plasmancer with the Living Lightning ability does it every single shooting phase as long as he's within 18 inches. So you could potentially do that 5 times. And that's just one Plasmancer. You could take 3 of these. Next, I've gone a bit weird here. I've gone with the Scorpet Destroyers. Now, I left the Scorpet Lord further down the pack. I think he was in B tier, wasn't he? I'm putting the Destroyers in A because you could just take these on their own. I mean, you could take a Scorpet Lord on their own as well, but you could take 3 of these on their own and they're just a handful. The Scorpet Lord is potentially an assassination target. These guys can just be 90 points for the 3. Decent amount of attacks. You've got the Plasma Sight there for devastating wounds. You're re-rolling ones, and on the charge you're re-rolling all the hit rolls as well. And there's a lot of attacks. I mean, with a 3-man unit you're getting 12 attacks. I like these guys. I of course prefer them with a Scorpet Lord, but I think these are slightly better. That's why I've put these into A, but I do like them as a combination. Next in the A tier battleline unit, it is the Immortals. I think they're so good, and I have these in pretty much every list. Battleline units in general apply to a lot of the primary mission rules, and I think there's something new. In fact, I'm going to grab the card while I've got it. There's something new that I only spotted the other day.
to do with battle line units. Oh, it's only for incursion games, but I still should mention this. Advancing does not make battle line units eligible in... let's say that again. Advancing does not make a battle line unit ineligible to start an action. So you could advance any battle line unit and still do an action. And also, starting an action does not make a battle line unit ineligible to shoot. So you can shoot an action in incursion games only. So that's the 1,000 point games with battle line units. So there's a little extra perk there that has gone under the radar slightly. So there's a lot of OC with Immortals, of course, 2 OC per model. Easy to get a whole host of different leaders that you can select from. All the Cryptex, the Nobles, the Royal Warden, there's loads of them. I prefer to stick the Plasmancer in here just for the 5+ criticals. I prefer Tesla, to be honest with you. They're naturally re-rolling wound rolls of a 1 or all the wound rolls, depending on if your opponent is on an objective or not. For me, these guys can go in literally any list. Stick a Cryptic in there, they're in the Canoptic Core Power Matrix. You can stick a Noble in there, a Obeisance Phalanx. The only one is probably the Star Shatter Arsenal and the Annihilation Legion, of course. So there is 2 that you probably won't tend to take them in. But out of the 6, 4 of them are solid. They're solid enough. So Immortals for me, every list. Nice and cheap and cheerful, 70 points or 150 for 10. Next we come on to the Locust Heavy Destroyers. I put both the variants in here, of course, because, well, they're both Locust Heavies. They're the same data card. They're cheap in terms of anti-tank or anti-infantry because they're only 55 points for 1. I prefer the Ghost Destructors because they're strength 14 with a flat 6 damage. And if your opponent gets to kill one, they've only realistically killed 55 points, so it's not the biggest deal. And yeah, those Exterminators are also decent as well if you want to take them. They're similar to Locust Destroyers in a way. Anti-infantry, you get a lot of shots. Even if you Overwatch with them, they get a lot of shots. Ideally, you want to be led by a Locust Lord so that you're going to have criticals on a 5+. You ideally want to find a way to re-roll your hit rolls or get a +1, but pretty much every detachment we've got now gives you something there, here, there and everywhere. Star Shatter Arsenal, Awakened Dynasty and so on. But yeah, going back to those detachments with a Lord, the Awakened, the +1 to hit, which means they can move with that heavy and still have the +1. And the standout, of course, is the Star Shatter Arsenal, giving them Assault, +1 to hit on objectives. There's a load of strats in there for mounted stuff, so another easy, strong A-tier unit. Next we come on to the Silent King, the big boy. Now don't get me wrong, the codex doesn't revolve around the Star Shatter Arsenal. That isn't the only detachment, but he works fantastically well in that detachment, giving his rerolls of 1s to hit, 1s to wound with the arcs, with the mounted stuff. Mainly the arcs though. I mean, he's not in every single list build. Would I field him in a Canoptic Court? Would I field him in the Awakened Dynasty? Obviously not the Annihilation Legion, so he wouldn't be an auto included in every single list, which is why I think he's at A tier for me. But in the Star Shatter Arsenal or the Obeisance Phalanx, he's definitely OP and he definitely kicks ass. Loads of abilities, loads of weapons, loads of wounds, tough to kill. In the Star Shatter Arsenal he's gaining Assault. You can have the -1 to the damage. Stratagem in the Obeisance Phalanx. Even the Hypercrypt Legion would be quite outrageous for a Silent King. And those Trichomaniers are quite easy to resurrect because they're only 5 wounds. So they do go down, but you kind of get them back up again in your reanimation phase, which is just in time because your shooting phase is just about to happen. Silent King, definitely a solid A tier for me. So that's all the A tiers all lined up. Now we're on to the S. These guys are in almost every list consideration, and you're probably taking multiple of them because they're that good. First one is the Canoptic Scarab Swarms. Every list should have at least one Canoptic Scarab Swarm unit in my opinion, unless you really don't have any points. 40 points for an area screen is cheap. Maybe you can go in 6s for a slight bit of melee threat, especially good in the Canoptic Court potentially. And you can even explode one as well, reanimate it back later on. You can even bring back multiple of them because of the Canoptic Spiders, if you wanted to go with that. Competitively, you do need screens, no matter what faction you play. And yeah, for 40 points, dirt cheap. You can't really see them because they're flat on the bases. You're using them to zone off deep strikes. You're using them so that your opponent can't make nice easy charges into your warriors, immortals and so on. They're just so handy to have. They don't have any OC. You can give them OC if they're near a Cryptek or a Barge, so it's not a massive problem. They can't do actions without OC, but they can still do area secondaries like engage on all fronts, behind enemy lines. Area denial is another one. Next unit in S tier is the Canoptic Wraiths that went down in points. 110 points for 3 or 220 points
4, 6. So they've gone down 5 points per 3. Not a massive reduction, but if you're taking like 3 units of them in the Canoptic Core, then it can be quite a lot, 30 points. So this is one of my favourite units. I know I say that with quite a few units, but this is genuinely one of my favourite units. I always take at least 1 unit of Canoptic Wraiths within my list. Sometimes I go full on and take 3 units, all with Technomancers of course. You need that Feel No Pain save alongside the Invuln save. It's a necessary thing to do. They're just disgustingly hard to kill. I just pushed them into the no man's land, stick them on an objective so they don't need to go too far, even though they've got a decent movement of 10 inches. They do have the ability to go over models and do damage, mortal wounds. I tend to not get to do that ability because I just push them in, stick onto an objective, get into engagement range for virtually the entire game, stick around, have more OC than my opponent, take them with the pistols so I can shoot in engagement range and then fight. That's how I tend to use them, just bog up the battlefield. Like I said, they're just disgusting to kill with the 4+ armor set, invuln save even, toughness 6, 4 wounds apiece. They've got the Feel No Pain save from the Technomancer. The Technomancer's healing them D3 in the movement phase. You've got the reanimation in the command phase, and even in the Canoptic Court there's a stratagem which if they get charged you can reanimate there as well. So whenever I'm able to reanimate, I just do it and keep them up and running. It really does annoy your opponent when they realise they just can't get rid of them. So yeah, Canoptic Court, you've got options, rerolls, Awakened Dynasty, hitting on 3s all of a sudden, but when you lose the Technomancer they do start to dwindle, so you need an S tier Technomancer, which is what I'm going to bring you now. He's going to be in the S tier as well. I only use the Technomancer for the race really, not for the Immortals, not for the Warriors. I don't think you need it. Orokin is there if you really need it, and I like to go cheap with Immortals or with a Plasmancer if I'm going aggressive. So the Technomancer is for the Wraiths in my opinion. We've already gone through the whole shenanigans with the 5+ Feel No Pain and the Invuln with the Wraiths. I'm not going to go through that again. Why this is so good is this Technomancer is a character. He can take enhancements, and there's enhancements such as gaining infiltrators from the Canoptic Core. So they're already right where you want them. So sometimes there's certain objectives in the no man's land that are slightly further out. They're not quite in the centre, they're a bit closer to your opponent's half of the board or area of the board, and 10 inches might not be enough to get there. But if you start off with infiltrators and march on forward, if you go first of course, you're then bogging them down, you're pinning them right into their area. His weakness of course is precision, but we've kind of mentioned the Cryptus rolls that can get you a little bit more defense with the 4+ Feel No Pain save for your Cryptek. It's not going to make you bulletproof all of a sudden. If you come up against something big, you're still going to go down. It's only a 4+ roll at the end of the day. You can revive him in the Awakened Dynasty, which is another reason why I really like the Awakened Dynasty. If your opponent does manage to snipe out the Technomancer, you can just bring him back with the Eternal Revenant stratagem. So yeah, another one in S tier. We've got some destroyers in S tier as well. We've got the Ophidian Destroyers, the MVPs, I used to call these. Then we got the Hypercrypt Legion, so then they kind of didn't become the MVPs. But then the Hypercrypt Legion got nerfed, where we can only take 2 units of hyperphasing unless you've got the enhancement and so on. These guys are now back in the game, I think. 80 points for a unit that can virtually hyperphase but in any detachment. They can deep strike and then they can tunnel. Every turn, end of your opponent's turn, take them off if they're not within engagement range, bring them back on any way you want, and you've got the cards, you've seen the cards, you know what you need to do. It's an extremely powerful ability for your secondaries really. Now if you do play the Hypercrypt Legion with Ophidian Destroyers, then effectively you've got an extra unit that can hyperphase, if you know what I mean, since we only can do 2 without the enhancement. Now they're quick on foot, they move 10 inches if you want to keep them on foot, and they fight reasonably well with 5 attacks per model, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, so they can defend themselves in engagement if they need to. I prefer them as a secondary scoring unit, but you could maybe use them in the Annihilation Legion if you've already maxed out with Scorpion Destroyers. You need some more Destroyer melee units. Go with 3 units of 6 Ophidian Destroyers to add to your melee punch. Definitely an S tier for me, pretty much in every list. Next we've got the Hexmark Destroyer. He's always an S tier for me from day dot, ever since we had this model released. Probably my last year's #1 pick, if I remember right. Still magnificent, but not my very best anymore. Lone Operative and Deep Strike is filthy, especially in the Hypercrypt Legion where you can keep coming in and out and scoring. And Lone Op, you've got to get within 12 inches to do anything to him, and if you do, he's going to have a free Overwatch when you do so. The extra abilities for shooting is a nice bonus, but I tend to not get to use it so much because I Deep Strike him in, do a secondary behind enemy lines, establish locus and whatnot. So he's working in pretty much any detachment as like a solo scorer. Doesn't really synergize with much. And he is a character, so he can get enhancements if he needed to, but you probably don't need to realistically. Now the only issue I've really got now is when you go with Hexmark Destroyers, you kind of open the door for assassination. They can get charged upon and then just die. I mean, he doesn't have an in-1 save, he's got only 5 wounds at toughness 5 at the end of the day. It's an easy assassination once they're close enough. Obviously from afar, they're not going to be able to do anything. So sometimes I tend to sub out the Hex marks for the Death marks, which don't allow your opponent to score that assassination. Or maybe even Ophidian Destroyers too. But still a top unit, just not my top unit. A unit that has actually overtaken them in my opinion is Flayed Ones. Now, I was never big on Flayed Ones. I used to hate Flayed Ones. I never really understood Flayed Ones. I prefer Death Marks. But I've come to realise the infiltration ability is actually so important. It's so important. Whether it's just a screen so that your opponent can't lock your army in and pin you down because they've got their own infiltrating stuff, or scouts. Whether it's because they're an anti-infiltrate unit. If you put something down before they do, then they can't get within 9 inches with their infiltrate units and their scout units as well, in fact. Or you snap a chance at scoring a card early turn 1. I mean, roughly a third of the deck is scoreable by Flayed Ones out in the no man's land in turn 1. Obviously, ideally you want to be going first, but even if you go second, it's still doable if they're behind a ruin and not in line of sight. But literally a third of the deck, of the secondary deck, is doable by Flayed Ones. So once they've done their card, let's say it's Area Denial, it could be Cleanse, it could be Secure No Man's Land. If you lose the unit, then you lose the unit. It's done. It's fine. It's 60 points. Your opponent still has to deal with them, so they've still got to waste their turn, their resources to deal with the Flayed Ones. That's if they want to. They may just ignore them, which gives you more to go and do something else. Now, detachment-wise, it's not really a big deal because of the synergy, apart from the Annihilation Legion, where they can get their re-rollable charge rolls. I'm not that big at using them in melee. I prefer to score with them, so I'm not really that bothered about the re-rollable charge or the stratagems, in fact. And we do lack infiltrators, in fact. Going back to that infiltrators ability, there's only one other place you can find infiltrators in the codex, which is the Canoptic Core enhancement. No other unit can do it, so we do need them. That's why they're an S tier for me. We're on to the penultimate unit now, and this is the Locust Destroyers. I found a new love for these guys. It was a toss-up between these and the next unit, which I'll save till the very end. I found it very hard to split them. These guys murder anything. Of course, you take them with a Locust Lord for the criticals on a 5+. There's stratagems in detachments such as the Star Shatter Arsenal, because they're mounted, or the Awakened Dynasty, because they're being led. They're absolutely gold in those 2 detachments. Criticals on a 5+ with lethal hits, that's magic. Damage 2 is pretty good. It hurts a lot of stuff. I mean, you've got 18 shots with a unit of 6. And if you can get a load of lethal hits to go through, then the toughness is absolutely irrelevant. And your opponent's got to make a load of saves, and each one is 2 damage. It starts to stack up really fast. So they can take down vehicles, they can take down infantry, they can take down anything. They really can. Going back to the detachments though, I love the Star Shatter Arsenal with Assault because they've only got a 24-inch range with their Gorse weapons, and having Assault just giving them an extra d6 to their movement of 8 inches is going to help. It's also going to help their ability because their ability applies to the closest target to be able to reroll 1s, and if they're on an objective you get to reroll everything. So ideally, to make them the closest, you need to be moving closer to them. One of my favourite units at the moment. But my number 1 favourite unit in the Necrons Codex right of this moment is the Doomsday Ark. 200 points and you get so much for it. I think they're underpriced. I shouldn't say that out loud, but I'm being honest. They're underpriced, they're undervalued. Absolute bargain. They're tanky. They've got toughness 9, 3+4+, 14 wounds. They've got long range of 72-inch range with the Doomsday Cannon. They've got the small arms fire with the Gorse Fire arrays, 2 lots of them. So you could be just slapping out 20 shots just like that. If anything tags you, you can shoot within engagement range as well because big guns never tire. So anything small that tags you, yes, it's going to be a -1 to hit, but you can shoot them out. They've got good defensive stats, decent wounds like we said, an in-1 save, devastating wounds as well. If you do stay stationary, that Doomsday Cannon is going to have heavy, so you're hitting on 2s. It's got blast, it's going to have devastating wounds, strength 18, -4 damage. This thing brutalizes stuff. This is why people are taking like the Silent King and 2 of these, or a barge and 3 of these in the Star Shatter Arsenal, which is probably the go-to for them because you're re-rolling 1s to hit, 1s to wound. So 2s re-rolling 1s, and it's probably 2s, if not 3s to wound, re-rolling 1s depending on how big the target is with their toughness value. You have an assault as well. You will lose devastating wounds of course if you do move, but you can gain assault in that detachment and a +1 to hit on objectives, so you would be 2s. Even if you've assaulted. Just nasty. In the Awakened Dynasty, you can stick an enhancement on maybe like a lone Hexmark Destroyer, which is the Phasal Subjugator. So they effectively have the buffs of being led. so they can move and still hit on 2s. If you're nearby your lone op hex mark, can't be sniped off. Hypercrypt Legion, you stick Cosmic Precision on it, bang it wherever you want because it goes anywhere on the battlefield. I used to love doing that, in fact. I used to deep strike hex mark and then a Doomsday Arc in the corner of the battlefield, and I used to go fix with behind enemy lines and establish locust. The hex mark would establish locust. I've got 2 units behind enemy lines, and the Doomsday Arc basically blocked any type of charge move to the Hexmark Destroyer. You had to deal with the Doomsday Arc first, which of course is quite a tanky model in itself. 200 points is an absolute steal, and the current meta I think is Star Shatter Arsenal. You take 2 or 3 minimum. But even in other detachments, this for me is your anti-tank. So guys, that is my Necrons tier list all summed up. If you've got anything that you would change, let me know down in the comments down below. Make sure you are subscribed, and yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.